discuss the latest on the Middle East conflict is Middle East expert Tom Gross. Tom, good morning to you. A pleasure to have you on the show.
Good morning.
So a lot to dissect. First, I'd like to discuss the latest with the ceasefire negotiations, please.
Yes, in fact, we have a new development. The Egyptian president, al-Sisi, is now trying to get a very short ceasefire lasting just 48 hours, 2 days. 4 Israeli hostages will be released and a number of convicted Palestinian prisoners will be released. But neither Israel nor Hamas, the Palestinian terror group, have given any reaction to Sisi's suggestions yet. And both of them are quite adamant. What Israel wants is for Hamas to give up power, to surrender. Israel's offered safe passage for the Hamas leadership out of Gaza and for them to give up control. Hamas, on the other hand, wants Israel out of Gaza and to regain control. So I'm not sure that the ceasefire talks will get anywhere because there's still intractable positions between the two sides.
Tom, if you don't mind providing us more perspective as far as this hostage negotiation, if you don't mind, because here in America, as we're hearing about the exchange of hostages for potentially Palestinian prisoners, there are concerns about these Palestinian prisoners being set free, many of them convicted of rape, murder, among other horrific things, and then they'll be on the streets free to potentially do the same thing again.
Absolutely. There's huge concern in Israel. That's one reason why there hasn't been any ceasefire, there hasn't been any prisoner swap. However, the families of the roughly 100 Israeli hostages, and some of them are also American citizens, being held in horrific conditions in Gaza, are desperate to get them out. And therefore, there is internal pressure from part of the Israeli public that supports the hostage families to release convicted Palestinian terrorists, even though they know that people released could go on to recommit, as has been the case in the past when there were previous prisoner swaps of this kind.
Well, Tom, as we discuss horrific acts, we saw one in real time early yesterday morning, that terroristic act right there north of Tel Aviv, Israel, where a big truck or a bus, however you would like to describe it, pretty much tried to ram into a bunch of people, more than 30 people wounded. We're told at least one person was reported dead. Have you gotten any updates on this situation, why it even happened in the first place?
Well, we don't know exactly. It seems to have been what's called a lone wolf. It's a Palestinian citizen, a citizen of Israel. And we don't know whether he was affiliated with a terror group yet. He rammed a truck at high speed into a crowd at a bus stop. The man who has died already, who was 72 years old, a pensioner, it's tragic. His father, who was 94, is a Holocaust survivor, and he was buried already straight after his death. Yesterday afternoon, and a Holocaust survivor in his 90s had to bury his 72-year-old son, killed on the anniversary in the Hebrew calendar of the October 7 attacks, which comes a little bit later than the general calendar's anniversary.
Well, Tom, I can tell you for many people in the U.S., seeing that horrific event unfold early yesterday morning, it kind of brought back memories of unfortunate events right here in America. We have our own festivals and events. Many people are preparing to celebrate the Fall Festival, or Halloween, as they like to call it, just a few days away. And I can tell you with many parades, unfortunately, right here in America, there have been terroristic acts, people who have claimed association with ISIS, where they will drive through a crowd of people, injuring and killing children, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers. So unfortunately, we're seeing that comparison right here in America. And I bring that up for you because, as you know, it is election season right here. And there is the concern of those terroristic threats there in the Middle East trickling over here to America. Also a hot topic for many as they head to the polls for early voting.
Yes, you've also had a number of similar attacks in Europe where a kind of car or truck ramming into crowds. It's incredibly difficult for the authorities to prevent, because if some person, a lone person at high speed, deliberately drives into a crowd at a bus stop or festival or something, it's very difficult to police. I mean, it's a kind of softest form of terror where the weapon is the vehicle. And there is this danger, and people should be alert and aware. Though I have to mention, in Israel, in spite of the ongoing war, rocket attacks, and other terror attacks, life goes on pretty much as normal. People are defiant. People go out. They are not going to stop their daily lives, because that is giving in to terrorism. So I would suggest that all democracies, people should not easily succumb to terror, while at the same time, people need to be alert, clearly.
Tom, as you were discussing the mood and the emotion there in Israel, I want to get back to the election, if you don't mind. What is the response and the reaction from Israelis and those living there in the Middle East when they hear about the election, specifically the handling of the Middle East conflict and support to Israel during this difficult time?
Well, yes, good question. So the election, as everyone knows, is only a week away. There is concern among many in Israel that Kamala Harris's position may be rather hostile to Israel, or rather, I should say not hostile, but she will make it hard for Israel to defend itself. Even though Israel hit Iran hard at the weekend, it has not yet hit the nuclear program, and that is the most crucial program, because Iran is racing towards a nuclear arsenal. It would be, for the Islamic regime there to possess a nuclear weapon is almost as dangerous as Al-Qaeda or ISIS having a nuclear weapon. So what Israel did at the weekend was take out air defenses, take out all of ballistic missiles, but at the urging of the Biden administration, it did not hit Iranian nuclear facilities. I think it wanted to postpone that, but at some point they may have to be hit. So there is concern that a Harris administration may put the brakes on Israel doing that. As far as Trump's concerned, based on his first term, he was, a friend of Israel and supporter of Israel. He got 4 peace agreements, as people know, the Abraham Accords between Israel and Arab countries. So based on his first term, whatever else one might think of Trump and his policies, he was good for the Middle East and peace and foreign policy. Having said that, people here in Israel know that Donald Trump can be unpredictable, and therefore a second term might not necessarily follow the policies of his first term.
Tom, thank you so much for breaking that down. I want to transition now to discuss the very latest of the conflicts with Israel and Iran. As we know, it is a fluid situation, a lot of back and forth retaliation. What's the latest you were hearing on that front, as there is concern that Iran could be planning something much bigger, big scale, compared to what they did last time?
Well, Israel did hit Iran in a very precise and targeted way. It was a very amazing feat. More than 100 Israeli aircraft hit more than 20 targets. They had to fly more than 1,000 miles across some enemy or unfriendly countries, Iraq and other such countries. And Israel has degraded Iranian missile defenses and ballistic missiles. However, the regime has, got a huge arsenal. The Iranian regime isn't just a danger in Iran. They also de facto control parts of other countries, Syria, Iraq, Hezbollah in Lebanon. They are allied with Hamas in Gaza. They are trying to stir things up in Africa, in Sudan. They're getting closer to the Venezuelan government. So Iran is a big threat in military terms, in terror terms, also in hacking and cyber terms. I just might add, as an aside, it's been revealed that 4 of the Israeli pilots that hit Iran at the weekend were female, were young women in their 20s. And remember that this regime in Iran, this Islamic regime, has been repressing women. It's been shooting dead women for not wearing head coverings sufficiently, according to the Ayatollahs that run Iran. So there's something rather ironic that Israel, a liberal democracy, now has female fighter pilots and female navigators in the Israeli Air Force, and it's essentially trying to get out of power, because that is the end goal, this Islamic dictatorship in Iran. And by the way, I know a lot of Iranian, more secular Muslim Iranian women, and they're actually cheering Israel on, because they too they have a common enemy with Israel, the Islamic regime, not the population of Iran, but the government in Iran, which represses women, represses minority, and commits terror.
So many great points you just brought up, Tom, and it further shows the oppression that many in Iran are still dealing with at this hour. And I'm also glad you mentioned that, because there's been a lot of concern right here in the U.S. when you think about that post-war plan. There was a lot of pressure on Netanyahu, right? If we look back to October, what is the post-war plan, even though we still haven't gotten all of the hostages back from Hamas? And there is concern what will happen to those innocent Palestinian people post-war that had nothing to do with this, right? We know IDF has been very vigilant and diligent, and they've been very expressive, saying that this fight is not against the Palestinian people, it's not against the Lebanese people, it's about these terroristic organizations that are trying to eradicate them.
Absolutely. Look, Israel, I don't know anyone in Israel that doesn't want peace with the Palestinians, with Lebanon, with everybody. And many Palestinians and Lebanese obviously want peace with Israel and don't like this war. But the only way to move towards better relations between Israel and Lebanon is for Hezbollah, the Iranian proxy terror group, to no longer have so much power and arms, and likewise in Gaza with Hamas. So anyone in America, for example, on American campuses or demonstrations, calling for a ceasefire now, what does it mean, ceasefire? If Hamas are unable to stay in control, that's not just bad for peace, that's actually bad for ordinary Palestinians who have suffered a lot in this war. We're only going to get peace and the rebuilding of Gaza once there's a government in Gaza that doesn't want to fire rockets at Israeli civilians 24/7.
Middle East expert Tom Gross, truly a pleasure having you with us bright and early here on Live Now from Fox. Thank you so much for your perspective and your expertise on this topic. I hope you have a great and safe rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to give you a live